right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about a couple of defensive coordinator moves. Most recently, the 49ers letting go of their defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks. So it was interesting because Kyle Shanahan initially said, at least from what I saw, that he expects everybody on the coaching staff to be back. But it's not going to be the case as the 49ers decide to let go of Steve Wilks. And I kind of feel for Steve Wilks because, so he was the head coach of the Cardinals, right? Then after 1 year, they let him go. They bring in Cliff Kingsbury. Then, they let go. He goes to the Panthers. They let go of Frank Reich. Or wait, no, hold on. Hold on. Matt Rule. Sorry, Matt Rule. Frank Reich was this year. They let go of Matt Rule. Steve Wilks takes over as the interim coach. And the Panthers play well down the stretch. They actually almost could have won the division last year, which they fell a little bit short. But even though the division was pretty bad last year, the Bucs won it at 8-9. But still, does well with them. And they let him go. They bring in Frank Reich, who doesn't even make it through the season. Now, you go to the 49ers to be their defensive coordinator, and they let you go. So it seems like he just can't catch a break. But, yeah, so Kyle Shanahan announced the firing of defensive coordinator Steve Wilks during the conference call. The decision to fire Wilks came just one day after Shanahan expressed his expectation for all coaches to return. At least the article that I was looking at, Wilks became the scapegoat for the 49ers' disappointing Super Bowl loss despite the defense's strong performance for most of the game. I mean, kind of looks that way. Because what I've seen on social media is who is the common denominator in these losses? Kyle Shanahan. Now, I said that this game I don't think falls on Shanahan. He is I do agree. He is the common denominator. Because how is it you keep getting back to this point? First time you were an offensive coordinator, you blow that huge lead to the Patriots. You get back to the Super Bowl as a head coach of the Niners against this team, the Chiefs. You have a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You blow that lead. You had a 10-point lead in this game, and that lead was gone. Now, it's a common. He's the common denominator, and also, but like I said, with the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl, I think you have to blame it on other things, like specifically the special teams play where they muffed the punt. That changed the complexion of the whole game. And then you had the Jake Moody extra point that got blocked. Chiefs got to instead just have to go kick a field goal instead of, we got to go get 7. So I can't really say. Now, could the 49ers have done more on offense? Absolutely. Because, there's no excuse. How does Brandon Ayuk... Now, Deebo Samuel was hurt. He was in and out. But still, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk both had 3 catches. George Kittle, I think, only had 2 catches. The game ran through Christian McCaffrey, but you have all these playmakers. You got to use them. I don't know. But yeah, it's true though. They kind of, I guess, yeah. I mean, because, the 49ers defense played really well in this Super Bowl. Now, if you want to go back to the previous 2 games against the Packers and the Lions, I understand that. You're down 17 to the Lions, and then you have to come back. The effort in that game. I mean, again, we go back to the Jahmyr Gibbs rushing touchdown with Chase Young. It didn't look like he was trying on that. And Steve Wilks was really upset about that. I mean, he talked about the lack of effort. But, yeah, it is kind of a bad look. And the other thing, too, is the fact that Dre Greenlaw got injured in the game. Dre Greenlaw had a couple of picks in the postseason. I think he had he had the game-sealing interception against the Packers. But did he have the other one too? Because Jordan Love threw 2 picks. So I think, yeah. But regardless, I mean, That is a huge loss in that game, in the Super Bowl. And if he doesn't get hurt, what happens? I mean, I honestly think the game kind of plays out the same. Because the 49ers, I just think both defenses at the end got tired. And that's, and the 49ers are going against an all-time quarterback. I mean, it's unfortunate that this had to happen to the Niners again. Because I wanted them to win. But, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I think this was kind of a little bit of a bad move. Well, I shouldn't say bad, but like puzzling. But, yeah, so despite the strong regular season defensive performance, allowing an average of 25.7 points per game in the postseason led to Wilks' dismissal. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. The Packers and the Packers and the Lions did a great job running the football against the Niners, and that was usually a strength for the Niners, but it was they weren't doing a good job there, and the Chiefs. I mean, they ran the ball for 130 yards in the game, in the Super Bowl, but yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's just it's odd because the defense showed up for the Super Bowl. They did. I mean, there wasn't a lot of big runs from Pacheco. I mean, I know Mahomes had a couple of big runs, but you know what? That just happens. Mahomes does that because he's Mahomes. But yeah, it was kind of a strange move there, but you know what? That's what they decided to do. So, so now let's get into Mike Zimmer. So now the Cowboys, they hired Mike Zimmer to be their next defensive coordinator. Now, he's replacing Dan Quinn, who left to become the head coach of the Commanders. Mike Zimmer, obviously, most recently was the head coach of the Vikings for a number of years. He returns to Dallas, where he began his NFL coaching career in 1994. There are players who have worked with him and have praised his coaching style and approached his efforts in player development. Zimmer expressed excitement and honor in returning to the Cowboys organization and working with head coach Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys actually reached out to Rex Ryan, but they couldn't agree. It seemed like they couldn't agree on a contract because I guess Rex wanted more years, and I guess the Cowboys weren't willing to do that. See, I'm honestly happy they didn't do that because I like Rex on TV, and I also didn't want to see him in the Giants division. But you know what? He's been away from the game for a long time, so you don't know how he would have been. Yeah. So they opted to go with now Mike Zimmer. So I wanted to look up though why things kind of ended badly in Minnesota. So it kind of just was like because with the Vikings defense, that defense was good the first couple of years he was their head coach. But the defense kind of took a turn for the worst. Well, not with the worst. Well, started to decline. I don't want to say for the worst, but declined. Players started getting older. They just weren't bringing in the right guys in drafting, free agency, and that ultimately led to him, being let go. Because I pulled up on StatMuse, the Vikings defensive stats. And so we go back to audio playing on my phone. I have it because I have it on my phone here on StatMuse. So we'll go back to like 2017 when they made the NFC Championship game. So opponents' points per game that season, if I can find it, I just had it. Okay, it was 15.8 opponents were averaging. Then the following season, 2018, 21.3. Then 18.9 in 2019. And then 29.7 in 2020, and then 25.1 in 2021. So that's where you start to see, the Vikings defense just was not the same. And then opponents' points per game. 2017 was 252. Then 341 the following season, 303 the following year after that. And then 2020 and 2021, 475, 426. It's not good. And listen, now he's stepping into a role with the Cowboys where you got a lot of talent on this defense. But you saw what happened in the playoff game against the Packers. That was an issue. And I could definitely see that happening here, even with Mike Zimmer stepping in. Cowboys defense, listen, they're opportunistic. They can turn the ball over. They get turnovers. They can get it after the quarterback. Micah Parsons is a beast. But listen, at times they can give up a lot of points. And we'll see how it translates next year, what Mike Zimmer does, how his approach is to preparing this team, week in and week out. But listen, it wasn't a good finish with the Vikings. They became, once Kirk Cousins got there, that's kind of when the defense started to, dip a little bit. And then, like I said, decline. Because, again, 2020 was rough. You remember the game against the Saints on Christmas. Alvin Kamara has those 6 touchdowns. Their linebackers they just could not tackle Kamara. The whole defense just couldn't tackle Kamara. Because I remember, I think, their entire linebacker core was injured, and they just they had a bunch of backups playing. And, yeah, it really showed. But yeah, we'll see how this hire goes for the Cowboys. I just thought it was interesting just because I wanted to look up, what the Vikings defense, what their stats were every year that Mike Zimmer was the coach. And, you saw towards the end, defense just, was giving up a lot of points, and that, because the Vikings had a good offense with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and all those guys, but the defense was a problem. So, but we'll see how he is now stepping in as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. So, before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we are then going to move on and talk about the possible trade destinations for Justin Fields if the Bears do indeed move off of him. So, with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.